Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. Okay, Stephanie. First of all, let me just apologize if there's an echo because I hear it and I don't know how much you guys hear it, but
I heard it earlier when we were talking, but now I don't hear it. So I think we're good.
okay. Well, they just came and like packed up most of the stuff in our house to get ready for this move. And so now I'm just in an empty room. So hopefully it's not too bad. But Stephanie, I really don't want to spend this whole episode talking about the Epstein files again, but we do need to give some updates because there's some new shit going on. And it kind of seems to me like after this media circus of the past week, Republicans might be getting pressure from Trump to back down because on Monday, the House Rules Committee voted 7-5 against a Democratic amendment that was introduced by Rep. Ro Khanna that would require Pam Bondi to release all the sealed materials from the Epstein files. And then yesterday, congressional Democrats attempted what they call a previous question vote, which would have allowed a debate on this amendment by everyone on the House floor. But all 211 Republicans in the House voted to block the debate. And normally there's at least one or two Republicans that stray from the herd, but nope, they were all together on this. And so Ro Khanna's promising that she's going to keep introducing the amendment again and again and again. But I was
I,
shocked that they came together.
yeah, I was super pissed when I first heard about this because people were talking about it on TikTok, like Republicans unanimously voted against releasing the Epstein files. And I was like, what is going on? But then Benny Johnson went to Congress and he was just interviewing like a ton of different people there. And I saw a clip of him with Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she brought it up because she wanted to explain what happened. So here's what she said.
I got to correct something real quick. Yes. So it's being reported that House Republicans unanimously voted to block the release of the Epstein files, and I want to straighten out the record right now. That is not true. If I could vote, okay. If I could vote to release the Epstein files, guys, you would have my vote. I would vote yes. Here's what just happened. It was a procedural vote, and we have these all the time. It's called a PQ. It's voting on the previous question. And if the Democrats had won the previous question, which I know sounds insane, it's one of these crazy rules in the House that are hard to understand. That means they would control the House floor. And that means they could bring up anything. They could bring up impeachment articles against President Trump. They could bring up a whole package of insane Democrat agenda items and force votes on the House floor on these things. That's what we voted against. We never allowed Democrats to have control of the House floor because we control the House floor. Yes. So it's a misunderstanding, and I just wanted to straighten that out.
I had no idea that that was a thing.
Neither did I. In fact, when I just talked about like what the previous question thing is, I had to look it up because I didn't even know what that meant. But
Yeah.
okay, that makes a lot of sense now, what she said. And I
Just
feel
like
better about it.
it makes me mad though, because I'm like, this is why Congress is such a shit show. They have all these weird rules and things. It's like, can we just vote like topic by topic and be transparent about it without all this nonsense? Whatever.
Obviously not, because that would make sense, and
Yeah.
Congress doesn't make sense.
Right.
But Benny Johnson also spoke with House Speaker Mike Johnson. And tell me what you think if you haven't heard this clip already, because it seems like he kind of broke ranks with the whole let's move on from the Epstein narrative, at least until we get a better explanation from Pam Bondi. So listen to what he said.
Speaker Johnson, this it's sort of on the heels of something else that a lot of people are asking questions about. And because we've been lied to by our federal government for so long, I feel like there's some type of like there's a pain point, right? And a pressure cooker that gets heated up on issues like the Epstein issue, right? And obviously that's something that's taken over a lot of the online dialogue. But a question here about it that concerns either testifying or testimony for Ghislaine Maxwell potentially before Congress, or if you would support members like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Anna Paulina Luna on the release of subpoenaing the Epstein documents from the DOJ, whether you would support either of those.
Yeah, I haven't talked to Marjorie or Anna about that specific subject, but I'm for transparency. We're intellectually consistent in this. Look, Reagan used to tell us we should trust the American people. I believe in that principle. I know President Trump does as well, and I trust him. I mean, he put together a team of his choosing, and they're doing a great job. It's a very delicate subject, but we should put everything out there and let the people decide it. I mean, the White House and the White House team are privy to facts that I don't know. I mean, this isn't my lane. I haven't been involved in that. But I agree with the sentiment that we need to put it out there. And Pam Bondi, I don't know when she originally made the statement. I think she was talking about documents, as I understood it, that were on her desk. I don't know that she was specific about a list or whatever, but she needs to come forward and explain that to everybody. I like Pam. I mean, I think she's done a good job. We need the DOJ focusing on the major priorities. So let's get this thing resolved so that they can deal with violent crime and public safety and election integrity and going after Act Blue and the things that the president is most concerned about, as we are. So I'm anxious to get this behind us.
Okay, so like I get what he's saying, but I do feel like that's a little interesting, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have been watching this very closely, and it's like all of the big Trump supporters and on podcasts and the media and everything are all really not letting this go. Like it's not going away. And Pam Bondi, it's just not looking good for her. Like I don't see how she keeps this position and keeps moving on. I think it's just going to hurt Trump. Like he's going to have to cut her loose. That's just my opinion. Unless they do come out with something at this point. But what are they going to come out with? They've had all this time to do that. They haven't. So I don't know. But yeah, like I think she's going to be the fall guy or fall girl, whatever.
Yeah, because at this point they've doubled down on this narrative so much that if she did come out with something, would it even be believable?
Right. Well, and it
So,
really is her fault. Like she's the one that has gone public saying the files are on my desk. I'm going to release everything. We have thousands of hours of video of child porn, like making all these claims and then not following through with any of them, and then giving all of these high profile influencers and podcasters this, these confidential files that had no new information. Like she has just screwed this up every step of the way from a
yeah.
PR standpoint. So she's going to be the fall person.
Yeah, we will see. But another thing that happened on Monday was the DOJ filed a response with the Supreme Court urging justices to deny Ghislaine. Is it Ghislaine or Ghislaine? I
I think it's
fucking always
Ghislaine.
Ghislaine. Okay. I swear, like Mike Johnson just said Ghislaine. So I don't know. Whatever.
I don't think
Anyway,
anyone truly knows, just like we don't truly know what's in the
right.
files.
Exactly. Thank you. So anyway, the DOJ filed a response with the Supreme Court urging them to deny her request to overturn her 2021 federal conviction for sex trafficking and conspiracy. And her attorneys are arguing that she shouldn't have been put on trial in the first place because of a plea deal that Epstein made with Florida prosecutors back in 2008. But the DOJ is saying that granting her appeal could basically undermine federal prosecution norms and open the door to misuse of plea bargains. So I'm interested to see how this plays out too.
Well, I am too. And for the record, this woman should be in prison. I like my opinion. Okay. However, I'm going to play devil's advocate for a minute because if what Pam Bondi and Cash Patel and Dan Bongino are saying is true, and there's no client list and there's no evidence of clients and all this other stuff, well, then why is Ghislaine Maxwell in prison in the first place? Like she is serving 20 years on child sex trafficking charges, yet there weren't any clients. So like who did she traffic them to? Like clearly it makes no sense. And so I don't blame her and her attorneys one bit for trying to overturn a conviction or get a plea deal or whatever, because they're saying, oh, there's no evidence. Well, if there's no evidence, how can she be in prison? Like one cannot be true. Someone's lying. Something's not right here. And so this is just another thing people are saying as to why what Pam Bondi is pushing is complete bullshit. Because if they had no evidence, this woman would not be sitting in prison. And so there's more that's come out from the Daily Mail I don't know if it's true or not because, of course, it's from an anonymous source, but this anonymous source told the Daily Mail that Ghislaine is willing to testify before Congress about what she knows. And the source told the Daily Mail, quote, despite the rumors, Ghislaine was never ordered any kind of plea deal. She would be more than happy to sit before Congress and tell her story. No one from the government has ever asked her to share what she knows. She remains the only person to be jailed in connection to Epstein, and she would welcome the chance to tell the American public the truth. So, those are all good points. Like, why has no one from the government talked to her? Well, because most likely the government was involved and this was a blackmail operation or whatever. Um, Another good point. She's the only person in jail. How is she in jail for trafficking if it was just her and Epstein? Like that, none of it makes sense, right? And so they have screwed this up so badly. And they're going to have to do something. They're going to have to either release something or fire Pam Bondi. Something's got to give. Either she's innocent and they let her go, they take her out of jail, or they reveal the crime she committed, which means there has to be clients that are involved in this for it all to make sense. I mean, right? Like, am I missing something here? If you are in jail for sex trafficking, who did you traffic the children to?
Right. Yeah. It's valid questions. And another person who is speaking out now is Alan Dershowitz. And I guess at one point he was Epstein's lawyer. He's like this big celebrity lawyer. But he did an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal yesterday where he said he knows the quote unquote facts and he can't disclose them because they're either privileged or subject to court imposed orders. And that even though the FBI interviewed alleged victims who named several clients, there is no actual client list and there never has been. And he said he knows who all of these supposed clients are and that none of them include anyone who's currently holding office. He was very adamant that Epstein committed suicide. And he said he has absolutely no doubt that Epstein never worked for any intelligence agency because if he had, he would have told Dershowitz and his other lawyers because they would have been able to use that information to get him a better deal. And he also said that he has sources in Israel who confirmed to him that Epstein had no connection whatsoever to Israeli intelligence and that that idea probably came like that whole thing that Tucker came up with, he's saying it probably came from what are credible allegations about Robert Maxwell working with the Mossad. And I think he brought up all of this because of that turning point event, like that happened over the weekend that resulted in so much backlash from MAGA supporters, which, by the way, apparently Trump called Charlie Kirk on Saturday after that event. And whatever conversation they had resulted in Charlie Kirk saying on his podcast on Monday that he will no longer be discussing the Epstein case. So I want to play that clip.
Plenty was said this last weekend at our event about Epstein. Honestly, I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends in the administration. I'm going to trust my friends in the government to do what needs to be done, solve it, balls in their hands. I've said plenty this last weekend. So if you guys want to see my commentary on it, that's fine. We have escalatory action potentially being taken in Ukraine and Russia. We have tons of announcements happening when it comes to NATO. But let me just say this again. Everyone knows my opinion about the Epstein thing, the messaging fumble. I would love to see the DOJ move to unseal the grand jury testimony. I think that would be a big win. I would love to see that. And I'm going to trust my friends, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, my friend Pam Bondi, all these guys. I'm going to, Todd Blanche, I'm going to trust them to solve it. Ball's in their court. I think that there was plenty of, let's say, speeches that were directed towards this topic this last weekend. So we don't need to spend our valuable time on this program relitigating it.
How interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because really, it was Charlie Kirk that has really pushed this in the MAGA
Right.
movement with Turning Point. Like, that's like all I mean, they talked about that relentlessly at their meeting, and it's all over social media. And I'm just going to call it right now. What do you bet we're going to see Charlie Kirk get appointed to some position in the administration very soon? Like you get this under control and we'll give you a position. I don't know. Like I'm just saying it's funny how he has this event and that's all they're talking about. And now he's like, oh, I'm just not going to talk about it anymore. And guess what? If there is a grand jury testimony that's released, that'll be a big win. He's priming everyone. That'll be what they release. And is
Yeah.
that a win? No, it's not a freaking win, Charlie Kirk. It's not a win. We want the whole story. Um, so interesting. I totally forgot about this until right now. Maybe you've seen it, Tara. I saw that Alex Jones had an interesting thing to say about this, which,
No.
okay, I meant to look for the clip and then got distracted and forgot about it until now. But apparently, what his theory is that um, Trump has, the client list and everything, or the Trump administration. And the reason why they're not releasing all of this is because he's basically using it to make sure that his agenda goes through. And so people that are trying to stop the agenda, it's like, okay, if you stop it, then I'm releasing this information. So like using it as blackmail, kind of like what it was intended for in the beginning. So it's interesting. I mean, think about it. If you're a government and you had this operation on all of these high profile people to have blackmail on them, you're not going to release it. Like you're going to hold on to that leverage. And I'm sticking to it. Like that has to be what's going on here, I think.
Well, Alex Jones' theories usually end up being truth, so who
Right.
knows?
Yeah. He's probably one of them. He's probably like
Yeah.
an operative too. Um, Okay, so Benny Johnson, man, he's been busy this week, but he also did an interview with Laura Trump. And I'm just going to play like her take on it because, of course, this is something they covered.
I do think that there needs to be more transparency on this. And I think that that will happen. I mean, look, I don't know what truly exists there, but I know that this is something that's important to the president as well. He does want transparency on all these fronts, that everything we're talking about, because it's frustrated him as well. As it relates to the president, I know that this is probably not his number one thing he's focused on, but he hears all the noise and he hears all of the consternation out there. And I think he's going to want to set things right as well. So I believe that there will probably be more coming on this. And I believe anything that they are able to release that doesn't, damage any witnesses or anyone underage or anything like that. I believe they'll probably try to get out sooner rather than later because they hear it and they understand it. Last
Okay. So she says that, and then Benny Johnson also posted on X, quote, just got off the phone with top federal law enforcement contact. The change in approach to Epstein has been dramatic. Expect more disclosures. Some very powerful people inside admin are now pushing for a special counsel and a full press briefing on Epstein findings. Important to note, this drastic change happened after Charlie Kirk and a number of other powerful MAGA voices pushed back on the handling of the Epstein case this weekend at the Turning Point Conference. They were met with massive roars and applause from the 7,000 gathered and could not be ignored. In short, our voices are being heard, power to the people. So, yeah, they're definitely going to release something. But like I said, it's probably going to be like, oh, the grand jury testimony. And they'll be like, oh, see, we released something, case closed. Now shut up about it.
Okay, but did you see what Trump said yesterday? Because
No.
this is just like what the fuck, okay? So he's now going with the narrative the Epstein files are made up, just like the Russia collusion hoax. So he was talking to reporters outside of the White House, and I would play the clip, but it's one of those with all the background noise that never comes across well. But he basically doubled down on how great of a job Pam Bondi is doing again, and then he was asked by a reporter if Pam Bondi told him specifically that he was named in the Epstein files. And here was his response, quote, no, no, she has given us just a very quick briefing. And in terms of the credibility of the different things they've seen. And I would say these files were made up by Comey. They were made up by Obama. They were made up by the Biden admin. And we went through years of that with the Russia hoax, with all the different things that we had to go through. We've gone through years of it. But she's handled it very well, and it's going to be up to her. Whatever she thinks is credible, she should release, end quote. Stephanie, what the fuck?
What does he do? I want to shake him. What is he doing?
I
Stop saying Pam Bondi is doing a great job. Like, do you really want to hurt yourself by saying that this woman is doing a good job when she's clearly not doing a good job? Number one. Number two, what the hell? This was created by Obama and Comey. If
yeah,
that were the case, don't you think that it would have come out that, like, oh, Trump is on the Epstein list? If they made it up and the whole thing is fake and it was Obama and Comey, they would have made it up to take out Trump. But they
right.
didn't. Nothing was ever released about Trump. So that makes no sense. And he must think we're idiots.
I'm just like, what are you doing? Stop already.
Like,
Just
just
stop.
stop. Who is your PR person right now? If you're listening to your PR person, like, I'm sure that Caroline Levitt is like crying, just like, listen to me. Like, there's
I
no way
know.
she's on board with any of this.
Oh, so I'm waiting to see what the fallout from that is. But okay, let's just like we need to switch gears away from this Epstein shit because there's a lot of other things to talk about. And one of them is this massive flooding that's going on throughout the United States because it's not just Texas. It's like widespread across the Northeast. And Stephanie, you texted me yesterday and said you had a flood alert in the area where you live in Florida that doesn't get floods.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Tara, I was freaking out. And here's why. Obviously, we saw what happened in Texas, so that it's fresh in my mind. But then in one of my mom groups, like one of the local groups here, this mom posts like, I'm ordering life vests for my kids because if there is a flood, like this is freaking me out. And so everyone's talking like, that's crazy. Like, we don't live in a flood zone. Maybe if you were right on the coast. But then other people were like, well, there's all this flooding happening in places that never flood. So maybe she's right. So that was in my mind, right? Well, then I get an alert on my phone that there's a flood watch in effect for like everywhere, including my area and inland Florida, like not right on the coast. And I'm just like, what is going on? So I was so paranoid yesterday. It was beautiful skies. And then within like 20 minutes, it was just like a pure blanket of clouds. And I was just waiting for it, but it never happened, knock on wood, yet yesterday, but we're not in the clear yet. And I'll get into that. So anyhow, my crazy state of worrying about like my house washing away in a flood or something got me completely down the rabbit hole. And you're going to hear all of it because it's interesting to say the least. So I'm just going to put it all out there. So first of all, flooding happening in multiple states. I'm sure everyone's seeing it now. The videos are all over social media. They're showing the New York subway with like massive flooding where they're like, we can't open the doors because the water will come rushing in, and they had to like stop the subway. There were New Jersey roadways where people were like stranded and their cars were flooded and like washing away. Um, we had all the flood warnings here in Florida. But I guess New York City recorded over 2 inches in a single hour, which I guess is their second wettest hour on record. And it caused this like widespread flash flooding. The subway service was halted, streets were submerged. Central Park alone saw 2.64 inches of rain, which smashed the 1908 record. So another like record breaking, thing. And then New Jersey declared a statewide emergency after two women that were tragically swept away in their vehicle. There were homes flooded. There was a house explosion that was reported, but thankfully no injuries with that, and dozens of water rescues that took place. But then you also had Pennsylvania, Virginia, Maryland, and DC also issuing flash flood watches. And there were rescue operations all along the I-95 corridor because there were just like consistent downpours. Over 1,200 flights were canceled or delayed. And I saw this all over social media. People were posting videos that were like stuck on a plane for over 4 hours, just sitting there on the runway, like not allowed to leave. Then central North Carolina saw 8 to 12 inches of rain in a 24-hour period. The Eno River in Durham rose 22 to 25 feet quickly, reaching like a major flood stage. The Haw River crested at 32 and a half feet. I mean, again, like this is all record breaking. Roadways were washed out, some roads collapsed. There were 6 to 8 deaths, over 100 rescues. And, this is all like in addition to what happened on July 4th in Hill Country, Texas. But I guess they're still dealing with flooding. So
Yeah.
the National Weather Service maintains a flash flood watch due to 1 to 3 inches an hour of rainfall there, with the rivers already swollen above flood stage. Texas flood fatalities are at least 133 at this point, but there's still a little over 100 people missing, and they're still doing search and rescue. Like, I can't even imagine these families who still are waiting, for their loved ones to be found. And then earlier in the week, Ruidoso, New Mexico, probably said that wrong, but they had historic flash flooding. And I saw that there was like a house just floating down this like river. That was on July 8th. And it was due to 2.5 to 3.5 inches of rain in just a few hours. And I guess 3 people died with that. There were several injured, dozens of people displaced, and then again, like multiple rescues. So, anyhow, like this was pretty much my entire feed on social media. And of course, everyone's going wild with theories. Everyone's got a different spin on what's happening. So the videos where it was showing New York and New Jersey flooding, it seemed like pretty much all of the comments on those videos were blaming Trump for cutting funding to the NOAA and FEMA. And they were saying, this is climate change, like wake up. When are people going to take this seriously? But then there were also people blaming cloud seeding and geoengineering. And then there's a whole group of people saying that this is the end times. So we've just got like all kinds of theories. Meanwhile, Moscow, like Russia, flooded as well. They got half the month's rain in just a few hours on Tuesday, completely flooding the city. Like I said, here in Florida, we're under watch. So there's like this tropical wave that could intensify and turn into a tropical depression. At which point, by the way, it would be called Dexter. And they have the new Dexter show out. So I'm like, oh, interesting. Is this like a subliminal PR message? Like,
Wait,
what?
is it a whole new show or just
Yeah,
another season of Dexter?
it's no, it's like a whole new show. I plan on watching it because I was a mega Dexter
So
fan.
was I. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I'm
Cool.
making my teenage daughter watch Dexter so we can watch the new one together. It's such a good show though. Um, so anyhow, we're like watching for that, but it looks like that is moving further north. So now they're saying like New Orleans could get slammed, but there's already been 5 to 10 inches of rain throughout central Florida. And this is just freaking me out because we had such a bad hurricane season last year with Helene and Milton. So they're saying this year is going to be bad as well. I'm really hoping they're wrong. But what freaked me out is Plant City, which is very close to Tampa. It got nearly a foot of rain in just 3 hours. Like looking at the videos, it was crazy. And they say this was a 1 in 1,000 year flood. And Tara, it's like, how many times just this year, just in the past month, are we going to hear that there's a historic flood? It's like 1 in 100 year flood, 1 in 1,000 year flood. Like it's left and right. And so, like, what's going on? Is it the apocalypse? Like, I don't know. I don't know what to believe at this point. But the fact that this is happening, like, very close to me is freaking me out. And so, I just start going through the comments.
Okay. We just had to buy a new house, right, to the area where we're
Mhm.
moving. And it is in a flood zone. And when we bought the
Oh
house,
my
we're like,
God.
it's like kind of part of the properties in a flood zone, but they're like oh, there hasn't been flooding here in, however
In a
long. And
hundred years.
yeah, and I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. Like it's no big deal. It's just like one little part of the property. I'm sure it'll be fine. And now I'm like, maybe that wasn't the best idea.
You might want to look into getting some flood insurance just in
Yeah.
case. Because if there's going to be a
Yeah.
year, I don't know, maybe this is it. I don't know. Let's not think that. You're going to be
Yeah.
fine. You're going
Right.
to be
That's why
fine.
I'm like,
That's
maybe I
why
shouldn't even bring this up. Yeah.
I know you and I were texting yesterday, and I was like, what am I doing? I'm like, never mind. We're going to be fine. Calm weather is coming. And it did. It didn't even end up raining here. So we got to keep this mindset. But first, before we do that, let me go through my conspiracy bullshit. Okay, so one of the comments on like the New York subway flooding, which by the way, talk about a new fear unlocked. I already get claustrophobic and I have a major fear of water because I used to have a recurring dream that I was drowning. And these people are in the subway and they just see water like gushing, like
No.
a ton of water. Could you imagine being underground?
Nope.
And ugh, horrible. But anyhow, the comment on this video said cloud seeding to push more climate change funding. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, that would make sense, like you want to get all this funding pushed for whatever, but you put it under the name climate change. And so you flood some areas with some cloud seeding. I mean, yeah, it's out there, but come on, we've seen crazier things that have happened in our government. But that then led me to one of my favorite people on TikTok, Glamham, and she posted the flight tracker on July 3rd. And what's interesting is people were showing the flight tracker in Texas, obviously, where the flooding was, but she was pulling up like the whole country. And she noticed that on July 3rd, there was a NATO plane in Roswell, New Mexico, that was doing like very strange patterns. Like it shows with the marker, and it's just like squiggle lines all over, very bizarre. And she said that this particular plane is a tanker. Now, I don't know anything about planes, but she said that like that could be fitted for certain things. And I think she was trying to allude to like a geoengineering plane, but obviously you can't say anything on TikTok about that. So, anyhow, that plane was all over New Mexico area, then made a pit stop in Texas. And as we know, both New Mexico and Texas had flooding. So she thought that that was strange. Honestly, that could be a coincidence. Like, I will buy that. Although NATO, anything having to do with NATO, it's like a red flag for me.
Right.
But then on top of that, she showed a video of the day that Texas flooded. And it was a video someone took of the flooding. But what she pointed out was the sky, like it turned pink and then it like flashed blue. It was very bizarre. And she was saying that that is what HARP can do by charging the atmosphere. And so then she posted a list of weather modification activities that are now prohibited in certain states like Florida. And I know I read this list like a while back, but of course, cloud seeding was number one. But Glamham seems to think there's way more going on here than just cloud seeding. So I'm going to read number 5 and number 6 because I think it has to do with that blue light flashing in the sky. So number 5 is releasing electrically charged or radioactive particles or ions into the atmosphere. And then number 6 is applying shock waves, sonic energy sources, or other explosive or acoustic sources to the atmosphere. So she was like alluding that like that flash could be for those things, and those things are listed as a ban. And again, we don't ban conspiracies, right? We ban actual technology that's available. So I think that's just the point I want to make. I'm not saying like the flooding all over is caused by this geoengineering. However, we have to acknowledge this stuff is real. There are you can go look up the patents right now for every single one of these 9 things that are listed under weather modification. Um, and then I want to bring up another rabbit hole that I went down with this because another comment on one of the flood videos was that drones could be used to cloud seed. And I honestly, I saw that comment. I'm like, okay, like we're getting a little crazy here. But I couldn't help myself. I had to start digging, and that just opened up a whole can of worms because this is a thing that's like being rolled out across the world. Drone cloud seeding. So you have in 2021, the UAE began using drones to zap clouds with electricity to induce precipitation. And as soon as I saw like zapping clouds with electricity, I'm thinking again, that blue flash before the flooding, like that's weird, right? And that program in the UAE is still ongoing. And I don't know if you remember this, but last year they experienced the heaviest rainfall in 75 years. Like it was
Oh
crazy.
yeah.
And
Yep,
like
I
in the
remember.
desert, right? So like it was in 24 hours, they got more than an entire year's worth of precipitation. And it was like insane. Roads were flooded, the airports were shut down, people died. It was horrible. Well, then India is currently doing experimental cloud seeding. And in fact, this month, July, drones and aircraft were deployed for a first ever artificial rain trial aimed at cleansing the air. So again, like it's all this stuff that they're doing is in the guise of climate change. But I don't buy that for 1 second. And then I guess China operates the world's largest cloud seeding program with tens of thousands deployed, bombs, rockets, drones, and ground generators. And I'm just thinking, like, great. So our like top adversary is a leader in this technology. And didn't they fly a weather balloon across the US? Like it's just freaking me out. Weren't there a bunch of people, Chinese people, that crossed the open border and are still in our country somewhere? And so, anyhow, I asked our GPT if the US uses drones to cloud seed, and it said, quote, the US now has drone-based cloud seeding operations, though it's still emerging and carefully regulated. Rainmaker is a climate tech startup using drones to seed clouds in drought prone states like Texas, Utah, Colorado, California. Their technology uses drones to disperse seeding agents, aiming to increase rainfall in precise areas while reducing human pilot risk. And I thought that was interesting because everyone's talking about Rainmaker, but I haven't heard a damn person talk about Rainmaker using drones.
I thought he did. I thought the creator did in that video I played on
Oh, maybe he
Monday.
did. Maybe I missed that.
I'm pretty sure he said that they flew drones into the clouds for however short period of time. I think that's what he said. I could be wrong.
So I don't know. It's like I go back to, I think it was Marco Rubio or JD Vance or both of them a couple months ago where they were asked, like, what is the biggest threat right now? And they said drones, drone warfare. And so
Yeah.
it's just like it would it would be a way to like harm the United States, but do it in such a sneaky way. Like, how would anybody really know? And then you think about how New York and New Jersey were the big areas where there's just drones everywhere. And so it's just like the whole thing, it makes you wonder. And I don't think, I mean, I don't know what I think at this point. I'm sure it's just a historic year for flooding and there's nothing weird going on. But who knows? What do you think, Tara? Am I crazy?
I feel like we're just turning into full-on conspiracy theorists. Like,
I feel like we are so like past that point.
I
It's
know.
like we should just come with our tinfoil hats on when we record
Seriously.
these episodes.
Seriously, if we had heard ourselves like 3 years ago when we started this podcast, we'd be like, what the fuck are you even talking about? But now it
Yeah.
all seems legit. And
Yep.
like you just said, I feel like every year there's like a push on focusing on some new kind of climate disaster. And I guess like 2025 is the year of the flood. So I'm sure we're gonna
Right.
see more. Yeah. So let's change the topic. Let's talk about California. That's always one of my favorite things to talk about. And there was some legislation that was just passed that will now enable the city to use 40% of people's property tax payments to purchase what? Oh, all of those lots that were destroyed by the wildfires so that they can turn them into low-income housing. And Stephanie, remember you brought this up months ago, and now it's literally falling into place because the California Senate just passed SB 549, which modifies the law to allow cities and counties to allocate property tax revenue for affordable housing under the new Los Angeles County Resilient Rebuilding Authority. And they're doing this so that they could, expedite recovery in these areas like the Pacific Palisades, Altadena, Malibu, and Pasadena. And this is going to involve $101 million for not rebuilding people's homes, but for replacing them with multi-family affordable rentals for low-income families in fucking Pacific Palisades and Malibu, okay? Now, I think we talked about this at the time, but I don't remember because this has been building because back in January, Newsom issued like sweeping executive orders to formally suspend all of the California Environmental Quality Act and California Coastal Act requirements for permitting with building. Then in March, he expanded that suspension to include utility and infrastructure requirements. And then just a couple weeks ago, he suspended local building codes and requirements like solar mandates that he's been pushing for. And he's basically just like suspended all of this in these specific fire impacted zones so that they can rebuild quickly. And this is all a total contradiction to his like clean energy, strict emissions regulations, the climate mandates, all the environmental development rules that he has like championed and instituted throughout the past few years. And then suddenly he's approving fast track building of low income housing in areas that were previously pretty much wealthy, high income, filled with multi-million dollar homes. And now they're going to be using state and federal funding and property taxes to turn these areas into government-backed subsidized housing developments. Not shady.
This makes my blood boil, which
I knew
makes
it
me
would.
wonder like what's going on in Maui? Like if there's anyone listening that knows anyone that's been affected either in Maui or in Los Angeles, please reach out to us. Like send us an email. What's our email? We are unapologetically outspoken at
Yep,
gmail.com.
that's
Or
it.
like message me on TikTok or something because I really want to hear from the people that this is affecting. And like, why aren't we hearing from people in Maui? Where is that going? Because they were supposed to be doing the same thing, but now like no one's talking about it. And all the videos seem to be taken off of social media. But you know how you said a little bit ago, we're turning into conspiracy theorists. Well, guess what? When we talked about this, how many people said, "Oh my God, that's ridiculous. You're such a conspiracy theorist." And here it is playing
Yep.
out exactly like we said. So, how many conspiracies have to come true before people like wake up and stop just like laughing it off and saying, like, oh, that's just a conspiracy? Like, this stuff is happening left and right. And it's
Yeah.
unfreaking believable. And Gavin Newsom, ugh, he just, the guy is ridiculous. And this is all part of their plan. Like, they have been planning for years in California for this. And now it's
Mhm.
playing out and no one's talking about it. And I can't wait to do a TikTok video on this because when I did a video on the Texas floods saying how horrible it was that these liberals were like, saying horrendous things about, oh, it's a red state, you deserve it. I had a bunch of liberals in the comments, and there were people that were like, oh, well, you didn't seem to care when California was burning down. And it's like, oh, really? Because we did quite a few episodes on that, and
Yep.
we said what was going to happen, and now it's happening. So take that, liberals. Okay, but speaking of liberal agendas, we have to talk about this like National Education Association's annual gathering. Have you heard about this?
No.
Okay, so I guess this is a annual thing where like delegates go to this meeting and then they vote on resolutions that are going to shape teacher curriculums for the year ahead, right? So this is supposed to be like making sure the education is all lined up for our children, right? Well, yeah, that's not what happened. Um, so instead of talking about the fact that 40% of fourth graders can't read in this country, or I think it was like only 26% of 12th graders are proficient in math. No, instead, they decided to spend the entire time discussing ways to fight Trump's agenda, like flat out saying that is what they are doing. And so Maya Salkin at the Free Press did a great article on this where she summarized the resolutions that ended up passing at this, okay? One of them was an initiative to, quote, defend democracy against Trump's embrace of fascism by using the term fascism in NEA materials to correctly characterize Donald Trump's program and actions, end quote.
My God.
So they're like voting on basically propaganda and using the word fascism. It's like maybe if we say it enough times, people will believe it. I think that's their thought process. Another that passed was, quote, support for and participation in the mass democratic movement against Trump's authoritarianism and violation of human rights. That includes support for the No Kings movement and the Los Angeles-based movement to defeat Trump's attempts to use federal forces against the state of California and other states, end quote. Why is this being focused on? What does this have to do with a curriculum for
Nothing.
children, for school
Yeah.
children? Another was opposition to ICE. They said, quote, ICE kidnapping of student leaders and support for student rights to organize against ICE raids and deportations. So you're going to encourage students to go against ICE. Like horrible advice. Don't ever go against law enforcement. Like what the hell? And so Maya Salkin's source told her that there was one woman that got on stage at the event and asked to talk about reading and math. And she was booed off the stage. They were like, we don't have time for that. There's more important things to discuss. So that's what's happening in our education system. They are using kids to implement this ideology and carry out their insane political agenda. And the thing is, like, this isn't even new. This did not just start because of Trump. It has been this way for years. We just didn't know about it.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I guess that's probably why we're failing miserably in the United States with the basics of reading and math. And it's also probably why once prestigious universities like Harvard are now the face of things like anti-Semitism and hate speech. And it's just another reason why I am absolutely homeschooling.
We need to look into like the teachers' unions because I think this has got to be such a fucking racket.
Oh, yeah. That we could probably do a whole series on that.
Yeah, that's absolute insanity. Oh my God.
Hmm.
I'm so glad I don't have kids. Like I can't imagine.
Right?
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So, some other last minute news is the Senate just voted to advance a $9.4 billion rescission package to basically take back all the government funding that was allocated for USAID and public broadcasting networks like PBS and NPR. And it was a very narrow vote, with all the Democrats voting against it, of course. And there were three Republicans who voted against it: Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan Collins. So JD Vance had to come in and cast the tie-breaking vote. But from what I read, McConnell, Murkowski, and Collins weren't necessarily fighting the cuts to USAID funding. They were mostly against cuts to public broadcasting networks. And I get their perspective on this if this is the case, because they were all basically saying that, especially in rural areas, people rely on these networks for emergency alert systems and community information. So, like, I get that perspective. But I guess the bill is now in the debate phase where they can introduce amendments. So I'm sure there's going to be amendments related to the public broadcasting network. But I think they have until Friday before the bill comes up for a final vote.
You know, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, and Susan
I know.
Collins,
I
they are part of
know.
the Unity Party,
I
or not the
know.
Unity Party, the Uniparty. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? They're
Yeah.
basically Democrats that have Trump derangement syndrome. And I mean, I think they voted against everything for his agenda so far,
Yeah.
pretty much. So, yeah, they can say, like, oh, it's because elderly people need emergency. They don't care. They just want to vote against it because they're Democrats. That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
So if this actually like goes through, I think this would be like one of the first Doge recommendations that actually gets implemented by Congress.
Amazing. Like
So we'll see.
they might get it done,
Yeah.
but there's Republicans fighting against it. That's interesting. Oh boy. Okay. Well, we'll keep an eye on everything going on, especially the flooding. I'm watching it very closely with this Dexter storm, and we'll keep everyone updated. And we'll see you back here on Friday. Thanks for tuning in.